The director of the U.S. National Institutes of Health says he is optimistic that the Trump administration's vaccine acceleration program, Operation Warp Speed, will generate a safe and effective vaccine for COVID-19 by the end of the year. He says there is a target of making 300 million doses by early 2021.
Remember that generally it takes 5 to 10 years to develop a vaccine from a new infectious agent. We don't have that time. So in record time, the very first vaccine went from knowing what the sequence of this viral genome was to injecting the first patient in a phase 1 trial in 63 days. That's a world record by a long shot because of new technologies that made that possible. And then going quickly from the phase 1, which looks very promising, to phase 2, which started on May 29th, and phase 3, which will begin this month.
Collins also says the U.S. plans to have 1 million rapid on-site tests per day sometime around September to enable schools to reopen and sports events to continue. And COVID-19 is on the march in the South and Southwest, and Houston hospital systems have seen the number of virus patients has quadrupled since Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, more than 3,000 people are in hospital. Almost 3,000 are in intensive care. Being cared for. And joining us now to talk about the latest COVID-19 developments all around the country is our chief medical editor, Dr. DR.Hebert. And Doctor, Texas has signed an executive order, the governor there mandating people wear masks. Kansas has done the same thing. But is this another case of locking the door after the burglars already broken into the house?
Well, it's close, but I will tell you the burglar's still there. So, you know, sometimes we have to lock the burglar in the house and call the police. And that's where I think we're going. I'll tell you, I was in Dallas, Texas yesterday, and in the airport, and I had on basically full PPE, and there were not a lot of people that were wearing masks. I was disheartened because of the numbers. I mean, once you see the numbers in your local area start to surge, and you still don't wear a mask, it's disheartening. You mentioned earlier the vaccine propagation, and right now the vaccine propagation and trying to get that vaccine where we need it to be, it is promising as far as the speed, and that's what I want people to realize. Getting this vaccine to market, we're great marketers and we're also great scientists, but to get this vaccine to market with being safe and very effective is going to be very difficult. I'm optimistic because it is possible. But as they mentioned earlier, I mean, 63 days, that's something that's never been done. And, you know, historically, African Americans don't like vaccines that are new and experimental, and with the good reason. When you think about the Tuskegee experiment, lots of other things that have been done. So we're at a very serious crossroads right now. And I will tell you, in Texas, they've been mentioning words like apocalyptic. And with numbers surging the way they are, July 4th weekend, people are going to have to choose between beer and barbecue and the life of their loved one. And I hate to be that blunt, but that's the reality of what we're looking at now.
Well, let's talk about the holiday weekend. Let's refer back to Memorial Day weekend, where people are also worried there. Did we see a huge spike after people were out for Memorial Day weekend? And does that mean that it'll happen again for 4th of July?
Yes, we did see a spike. And what I think you're seeing right now is the spike. You know, we have a lot more cases, and it's not just because of the testing. We just have a lot more cases. I'm concerned that we are going to start slowing down the testing, because if we do that, we can artificially make it seem like there is a decrease in the numbers. You know, we had our vice president and a couple of other folks say that we should slow down the testing. And our president, you know, made a joke about it, but I'm concerned that people will do that. But we will see increased numbers over the next 3 to 4 weeks, and we saw increased numbers from Memorial Day. It's summer. People are getting out. They're getting antsy, and cognitive dissonance is setting in. And we can't stay here. Either we're going to go backward or we're going to go forward. And I hope that we will listen and go forward. That's my hope.
Well, now's not the time for after-action reports. Plenty of time to do that later going forward. But don't we have to at least point out that certain states, such as Florida, such as Texas, Arizona, and others, just tried to reopen too early?
Yes. I mean, when we think about the amount of cases, we were seeing 20,000 cases a day, and that was our basement floor to say we were going to go ahead and reopen. But really, it should have been 5,000. We should have gotten all the way down to 5,000 and have that curve 100% flattened before we started reopening. We know that we reopened, and the cases. We also know that we were supposed to wait until the cases were on a downward trend for 2 weeks before we reopened, and the states that didn't do that, they actually have had an increase in those are the states like California and Florida. So they didn't wait to have the 14 days for a downward trend.
Now, Dr. Hebert, there's still people who are having a hard time believing how serious this is. There's some people out there who still think this is fake. There's some people who think this is not as serious. There's some people who think that it's just not what people are saying. What can you do to tell those people, why they should believe what's really happening?
I think there are a lot of people out there that just have not really been exposed. Meaning, we have 320 million people in America, and then we have 130,000 people dead. And you look at that number; those numbers mean like about every 1 in 5,000 people knows someone who died. Most of those other 4,999 people only know people that have gotten this, maybe got a little sick, but most of them got it and got better. So people look at the television and say, "Oh, those people are just trying to be alarmist," because they look at their community and say, "I've known 45 people that have gotten this and none of them died, none of them are really sick, so I'm okay." But you can't really think about it like that, because when you start looking at data points, if it say it's 1 in a million, if you get it, it's still 100%.